Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. In this week's episode, Why Not Us?, we take you to a magical place where people leave their homes, eat in restaurants, buy toilet paper, and no one has heard of Tiger King. Yes, this episode was recorded before the coronavirus hit. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that our weekly conversations have been focusing on the urgent matter of surviving the crisis. But we still have a few great episodes in the hopper that we plan to roll out as seems appropriate. This week's conversation features the 3 women among the 5 business owners who are the 21 Hats podcast regulars. They talk about their very different journeys to where they are today and what's changed for women entrepreneurs. "You can tell me I can't do this," says Karen Clark Cole at one point, "but it looks like I did." To which Laura Zander adds, "My experience now is I have a lot more confidence because I can just tell people to F off. We have a decent sized business. We've done pretty well. My business is my confidence." Dana White tells us there are always these stereotypes with women. When she gets upset, it has nothing to do with what just happened. It's all the baggage that she's bringing with her. Our hope is that business owners listening to these conversations will pick up a few tips. If nothing else, they will surely see that they are not the only ones fighting the good fight. If you know a friend who might benefit from this episode, please share it. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Review us and rate us. It makes a difference. Also, this Thursday, April 30, I'm hosting another 21 Hats War Room. This week, my guests on the free live webinar will be Ami Kassar, one of the foremost experts in small business lending, and Ari Weinzweig, who co-founded Zingerman's, an iconic American business that started as a college town deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and grew into a mini conglomerate of small businesses. More recently, Zingerman's had to furlough nearly 300 employees. You can get the link to register for the webinar through our daily email newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, or you can always just email me. My address is lfeldman@21hats.com. Before we get started, I'm here with Adam Whitty, who is the founder and CEO of Advantage Forbes Books, which helps entrepreneurs write and publish their own books. Adam, I know you think all entrepreneurs should consider writing a book. Why is that?
A book is the most powerful marketing tool in the world. It's a way for you to share your story and your company's story without anyone ever feeling like they are being sold to. It builds authority, it builds credibility, it builds expertise for you and your business.
Adam, we're recording this in the middle of this unprecedented crisis. Is now a good time to write a book?
Believe it or not, Lauren, I would argue now is a better time probably than ever before. Entrepreneurs and business owners have an unprecedented amount of time on their calendar that, quite frankly, they did not think that they would have. We are working with entrepreneurs all over the world who are using this unexpected downtime to create an asset for their business that will pay dividends for the rest of their career.
If someone does write a book, how will they know if it's effective as a marketing tool?
They use a book as a sleuth marketing tool to generate new customers, to advertise their business, and ultimately to help convert prospects into customers. And for many entrepreneurs, a customer can be worth hundreds, thousands, even tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so one new customer into your business can more than pay for the book. Speaking opportunities, PR and media opportunities, those are some of the other benefits.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs who've wanted to write a book and have never quite gotten around to it. How do you help somebody in that situation?
We do our best to make it as easy and painless as possible. And we do that by first pairing you with a master book planner who spends some time interviewing you, and those interviews turn into a blueprint for your book. Then we assign a ghostwriter to work with you to ask you questions about that master book plan, to interview you. It's all done over the phone, Lauren, so it's super easy. Those interviews are then ultimately turned by the ghostwriter into the manuscript of your book.
If someone wants to learn more, where should they go?
We have a free copy of my best-selling book titled Book the Business, and we're offering a discovery consultation to any 21 Hats subscriber that wants to learn more. AdvantageFamily.com/21 Hats.
You heard him. Go to AdvantageFamily.com/21 Hats to get Adam's book and to sign up for your consultation. Now, back to the show. Let's meet this week's 21 Hats podcast lineup. Back with us today are Karen Clark Cole, who is CEO of Blink UX, a digital research and design firm based in Seattle. Dana White, who is founder of Paralee Boyd, a chain of hair salons based in Detroit. and Laura Zander, who's CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital version of a neighborhood yarn shop that's based in Reno, Nevada. This was bound to happen eventually. This week happens to be the first time we've done a 21 Hats where our three panelists happen to be the three women among our five regulars. My first thought was that this would be a great opportunity to talk about the issues that are particular to being a woman entrepreneur. My next thought was, well, maybe we're past that. Maybe I should treat this just like any other 21 Hats episode.
Amen, Lauren.
I went back and forth on it, and eventually I decided to just throw it all to you and let you guys decide. Are we past this issue, or is entrepreneurship still a very different experience for women than it is for men? Who wants to go first?
I'll take a stab at it. I don't think we're past this issue at all. I think the only way we'll get past it is if, women keep, making the same strides as far as, kind of like what Karen just did and said, hey, amen, Lauren, right? We have to move the group past it. And there's a part of me that's like, oh gosh, as women, we have to do more work. Like, why is it on us? But I think because we have the vision, that we'll be able to do it. But as it was recently brought up to me about mansplaining, I was wondering, why do I always have to wait for whoever I'm talking to kind of understand that I'm of equal intelligence and that, I have to wait for them to get me and get it. And especially being a minority woman. Whoa. So no, we're not past it, Lauren. Not at all.
Can you give us an example? When this issue gets discussed publicly, it tends to focus primarily on what happens when women entrepreneurs try to raise money. But I'm sure that's not the only time.
Not at all.
I'm wondering, when you talk about being mansplained to, is there a recent experience of that you might share with us?
I mean, that happens, probably 7 times out of 10, so what happens is, it's easy to kind of box Paralee Boyd and say, okay, hair salon done. But as you all know, it's actually rather different as far as like the lean manufacturing component and just the data collection and what have you. And I found that I have to wait. I find that, and I hate to generalize, but I find that most men, when we're doing an introduction and speaking with me about my business and what I do, I have to wait for them to get it and get past the box, right? And it's only been a couple of occasions where the man didn't come to the conversation with, I'm meeting with a Black woman and let me hear what it is. It happened when I talked to you, Lauren. You didn't come to the table with that. You came and you immediately got it, as well as a few others. But for the majority of the time, oh my goodness, it's, and then the light goes off and then the conversation goes back and forth because they realize, hey, she's capable. Right. And so
Dana, when you say the light goes on and they get it, what do you mean by get it specifically?
They take me out of the box, right?
Meaning they don't think that you're a CEO or they're not sure if you're the leader or what do you mean?
I mean, it's not so much that they, you tell them, I'm the leader, I'm the CEO, whatever, but they have this perception of a woman-owned hair salon, who she is and I don't want to say what her intelligence is, but how much does she know about business?
I see. How much is limited generally, you're saying? Limited,
yeah, generally. And then I have to go through the motions with them to kind of get them to understand, not only is the business different, but because the business is different, she can speak to A, B, C, and D. And then they start to speak to those things with me once they realize that it can be done. But upon the initial maybe 5 to 10 minutes, it's this me waiting for you to catch up, right? And also me showing you, which I hate that I have to do, showing you that, this is a conversation you can have with me about lean manufacturing data, that I'm not just the Black female salon owner. And you know what? I kind of wish that was enough, right? I kind of wish I didn't have to show more.
Let me ask you, Dana, is it possible that some of this is just people's expectations about what a hair salon is?
Exactly.
It's interesting that we're talking about this right this second, because I literally was just sitting downstairs with a guy. I'm at a big knitting show in New York City right now. And I'm sitting with a guy who comes from a finance background. He comes from like the Arthur Andersen world, young guy, about 30 years old. And he recently bought a knitting subscription business. But before that, he spent a few years working with a beauty subscription business and getting that off the ground. It's not Ipsy and not Birchbox, but it's a third tier to that, I guess. And he said that when he was raising money and trying to get investors for this beauty subscription box, that the men that he would go to, because most of the investors were older men, would just look at him and they would give their opinion and they'd just be like, this is ridiculous. This is so dumb. Like, why? Nobody's going to want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And this is this young guy from Miami. And he's just like, he had to get to a point where he's like, honestly, your opinion doesn't matter. Go give this box to your wife, go give it to your daughter. Like, you are not our target market and you're not our customer. And the economics are here. The business model is here, and quit using your personal experience to make business decisions. But I mention that because he is just a regular, he's a guy and he's talking to guys. And so I think sometimes, to Lauren's point, and me being in a knitting world and a creative world, I think sometimes it's less about who the messenger is and the fact that these people, if these businesses are not within their worlds and their world of experience, they just don't get it.
So we started this with my asking where we stand on this issue. Are we past it or not? And obviously Dana's response was a very strong no, we are not past it. How would you answer that, Laura?
That's a good question. And I honestly it's not popular to say, but I've never felt like, I've just never felt it. I've never felt discriminated against as a woman. I've never felt any barriers as a woman in business. Every once in a while I'll have a woman or a man look at me and not understand what I'm saying, or, kind of be dismissive or be a jerk. And, but it has never, I don't know. I have not experienced it. Dana and I have talked about playing rugby, and playing basketball. And I think part of it is that I just kind of refuse to be intimidated. So even when somebody is a little dismissive or a jerk, I basically either mentally or verbally say, okay, let's take it out on the court, and let's see, if you can beat me in basketball, then great. I'll cede your point.
You get to a good point. I think it's tricky to tell sometimes where somebody's coming from. A jerk is a jerk. How do you know why they're being a jerk?
Absolutely. Great point.
I agree, but I disagree. I think she's right. There's this resolve that you have from your experiences that certain things you're just not going to let happen. And quite frankly, I don't think any of us would be open if we let the jerks determine the viability of our business. I think for myself, I'm keenly aware when there's the I don't understand, which is different than I don't understand and I'm dismissing you, because it can only be so much because of who I think you are. I think it's there for me.
I totally, and that's why I'm nervous to even answer this, because I'm not dismissing the fact that it's happening.
Yeah.
I have been fortunate and privileged enough to live in a bubble where it hasn't affected my life and my business, where I've been able to say bullshit, or I've been able to say, you know what, I don't want to do business with you anymore then. And I have had to do that. But a lot of times I feel like the people that have not treated me well, sometimes I think it's less about my gender and it's more about the fact that they're just assholes. And they're assholes to everybody. But I think if I look back kind of intellectually and academically, it probably is because I'm a woman and because this is a woman-run industry. And so there are these, old white males that just have these kind of archaic views of how business is done. But I'm just naive enough, I guess, or just, like I said, kind of live in this bubble and pretend it doesn't exist, and I just don't let it affect me.
I have said the exact same thing as Laura, is that I feel bad because for many, many years I was full on living in a bubble and I had no idea that there were problems. And once I started cluing in, I felt really guilty and like, wow, was I ever living in a bubble? But it was to my advantage. And so
What burst your bubble?
we started in 2000. So we've been around 20 years. And in the early years, I just thought, oh, yeah, this is awesome. Everybody, all women start companies and run them and grow them. Isn't it great? And particularly in the high tech world. And so, but once we started getting more known, probably 10 years ago, I started getting calls just sort of gradually and more frequently of, hey, wow, you guys are doing great. And, what's it like to be a woman CEO in a high tech world when you're the only one? And, or first of all, they would say, what's it like to be a woman CEO in a high tech world? And I would say, oh, it's really great. Like, why are you asking? And they would say, well, you're the only one. And I'd be like, well, I am not the only one because I just had lunch with several others and I would reel off their names. And I said, and when you're done talking to me, you should call them up because they're really great. And so I think part of it is an awareness. And I really believe that you look for evidence to support your beliefs. And if people believe that women aren't running companies, that's all they're going to see. They're going to see all the cases where men are running companies, and they won't even notice if a woman walks right on by running a company. So my goal in talking to these people then, and I actually created a whole nonprofit event series around it because I became so obsessed with my years of wearing covers on my eyes and not understanding what was really happening, is I became obsessed with pointing out where it's happening. It's like if you say, look at all the red cars today, all of a sudden, all you're going to see is red cars. And so it's the same idea. And so what I wanted to do is start saying, hey, there's actually a lot of women running businesses successfully. Here's some examples. Now start looking for your own. And then all of a sudden, everybody will start seeing them. We're already doing it. And so that's been my approach. And I, like Laura, have been very fortunate in that, before I started realizing what was going on, it was way too late. Like nothing's going to knock me down. And, I actually see it as a challenge. And my favorite thing to do is sit on an airplane. And if I get my father is an old white guy who I love, and they are my biggest supporters. So you should know that I have many, many men who support me personally and lots of other women. But it's my favorite thing when you get an old white guy and we sit down on an airplane and I look fairly young as well. And so is to, by the end of the flight, if I've convinced them that women can do everything, then, then my job is done.
Karen, I think all three of you have had the experience of talking to potential investors, but I think you probably have been more aggressive and ambitious about reaching out and considering that possible option.
Only recently. It's not in my blood.
Well, in the last year or two. What was that experience like for you? Because that is where this issue tends to come up the most.
I'll tell you, it was there a little bit. And like I said, because it's way too late to get under my skin, I just see that as a challenge. And I tell you, there was one guy who I read the Riot Act to because I said to him, I will not do business with you if you're going to talk to me in that kind of way. And I hung up the phone. And that was it.
What kind of way was he talking to you?
Patronizing. I don't look for this, so I don't see it very often, but it was my belief that he was talking to me like that because I was a woman. And based on past experience with him. And like I said, I don't see this very often because I'm generally not looking for it. But in this case, it was intolerable. I was just not going to tolerate it. So, but that does not happen very often to me.
Yeah. But I think, Karen, you hit on something and said it really well in terms of we're too far, you and I are too far along, almost being 20 years into the business. Now that I'm, as I'm thinking back through this, when I was only in, when I was at the 3-year mark or the 5-year mark and less than $1 million, I didn't go out, I didn't spend a lot of time interfacing, with the old white men of the world, if you will. And I'm married to an old white man. I mean, he's almost 50, so I'll call him old. my experience now, I just have a lot more confidence because I can just tell people to F off. I mean, we have a decent sized business. We've done pretty well. So my business is my confidence, and
Yeah, and
I
I
can
think
ignore the other part.
it's like, tell me I can't do this, but it looks like I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Laura, you started this business with your husband. Did you ever have the experience where people assumed that he was the one who was in charge?
No, but that's because he's never been the public face. I mean, other than his mom. I think that she thinks I do nothing. So, no, but he's, we're in the knitting industry. So, of course, people are going to assume that it's me.
I'm in the beauty business, and people think my boyfriend is the owner all the time. Even when we're doing press, even when people defer to him all the time. I'm
like when you're out for dinner, or when?
So if we're anywhere, but it's majority of the time, if he is standing next to me and we're talking or the business comes up, especially if he's in the salon with me, they defer to him. I've literally, when I was doing the build out of Paralee Boyd, I literally walked in, and I was at this point, I was like, I'm done trying to prove and explain to people that I'm the owner. So the subcontractor came in, and I said, hi. I said, I'm here for the 1:00 appointment. And the guy said, okay, could you let us know when the owner gets here? And I said, oh, absolutely. That's what I'm falling back on the conversation because my experience is very different. And so
And did you just fire him on the spot?
He was a sub. So I just said, okay, I'll let you know. So when it got to 1:10 and 1:15, he came up to me. Who are you? I said, I'm Dana. And he said, do you have any idea what time the owner? I'm assuming that's your boss. And I said, I'm staring at him, and I said, well, how can I help you? And he was, he goes, well, I'm not sure you can. These are things for the owner to look over. I said, again, how can I help you? And the fact that I'd already given him my name, and I was done trying to convince or prove or show him, you have a 1:00 with Dana, who is the owner. But for some reason, in quotes, when I walked in, he assumed I was the other Dana.
Though, that's what I was going to say is I never got that people thought my husband was the owner, but everybody has always assumed my employees are the owners and that I just work there. And that's still the case. But
yeah.
How does that happen?
When I started, I was 27, and I guess I looked probably more like I was 19 because people thought I was the high school help. And my employee was 65. So they always just assumed that she owned it and I was the high school help. And then
that's somewhat understandable.
It is. And and I, you've seen how I dress. I wear a t-shirt and shorts, and I look like I try to pretend I'm still in high school. It's Dazed and Confused. I'm Matthew McConaughey. So I don't dress professionally. I don't have business cards. So I walk out very casually, and people are always typically very surprised. So that doesn't really faze me because a little part of that, actually, to Dana's, using her example, is I do a little bit of that on purpose because I want to see how people will treat me.
Yes.
If they don't know who I am. Yep. And if they treat me like crap, then I don't want to work with them.
Exactly.
So I'm very, I go to events like this. I don't wear a name tag.
Lauren, there's the underdog side of it that works in our favor.
I love it. I do it all the time.
Tell me more.
Even in my salon, I had another woman who at the time was my operations manager. And, she was white, and they deferred to her. And one lady got up and she came in and she overheard another person defer to her. They said, oh, this is white owned. And she was getting ready to walk out. And we said, no, she's the owner. So when I'm in my salon, I'll answer the phone. I know I'm the owner every time I pay a bill. So I don't need everybody to know that I'm the owner. And what's another a little anecdote is that I'm in Michigan. So I lived here for years, and I was here young, and I had a bully who came in to the salon. And I was behind the desk. This is a girl from college. She was awful. And she came into the salon and she said, oh, hi. And I said, hi, how are you? She said, oh, you work here now? And I said, I do. How can I help you? And she, I checked her in, and then I left. She said, oh, is it the end of your shift? I said, it is.
I love it.
I said, enjoy your
Oh my
visit.
God, I love it.
So I
I love it.
left. And she, sauntered up to the front desk and she asked the girl at the front desk, what is it like working with her? Then ask all these questions. And my staff is under their breath laughing. And she said, you mean working for her? And she said, what do you mean? And she said, Dana, she's the owner. And so, and the lady was actually upset. Why didn't she tell me? Blah, 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 blah. And so my staff called and told me what it was like after I left. Well, why didn't Dana? So the next time I saw it, she was nothing but roses and friendly. And, and then I'm like, Laura, okay, you've shown me who you are the first time. I believe you. And you just kind of like flying beneath the radar because it gives you an idea as to who these people are when they think you're the receptionist versus the owner.
Absolutely. 100%. You nailed it, Karen, with the underdog. And I think this is such a great therapy session because I'm realizing it's not that I haven't experienced this. It's that I am narcissistic and arrogant enough to try to spin it so that I'm in control.
Yeah.
And I'm the one.
Wow. That's huge.
Well, and I take secret pleasure in it too. I love it.
Oh, absolutely.
And they see this company kicking butt. And then, if they find out it's me later on, I think that's sort of fun.
I love awesome. It's awesome.
100%. There's nothing more fun to me, really.
Especially the ones that treated you
totally.
As if you were the help.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right?
Dana,
Guys.
we talked about this. It's always the rugby and the basketball for me. It's like the bottom line is at the end of the day, let's go out to the basketball court and let's see what it looks like. So don't pretend like you're smarter than I am. Don't pretend like you've got more power than me because when it comes right down to it, yeah, anyway.
This is good to know. I'm not going to mess with Laura or Dana.
So, yeah, that's hilarious.
So the other issue that people talk about a lot is whether or not there's something of a confidence gap between men entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs.
Well, Laura, you can't actually ask that question after the conversation we just had, can you?
Sure I can. The context it comes up in is explaining why there aren't more women-owned businesses that crack $1 million in revenue. And it leads to a discussion about women just aren't as ambitious as men. Maybe they don't have the confidence. They don't fake it until they make it. They don't push as hard for growth. And I'm interested in this area because there's an aspect to this that rarely gets discussed, which I think is kind of important. I think, some of those men who are pushing harder and more aggressively are making huge mistakes. I mean, it's to some extent, it's the finance issue, the venture capital issue. I'm not a big fan of venture capital. So when we see we always see those statistics about the percentage of venture capital that goes to women entrepreneurs, and it's a tiny percentage, and it's ridiculous. But I also think, venture capital, in my opinion, destroys as many businesses as it helps, maybe more. So I'm sitting here thinking, women have the same right to destroy their businesses that men do, and they should have access to venture capital. But on the other hand, that isn't necessarily the smartest way to build a business. And, pushing crazily for growth isn't necessarily the smartest way to run the business. So with all that in mind, I'm curious how you guys think about that.
I think it's a societal thing. And I'll expand by saying I had a fellow business owner. She was very excited about expansion, opening up a second and third location. She got her funding. Everything was intact. And then at the last minute, she changed her mind. And when I asked her, I said, hey, what happened? And I expected it to be, I just really looked at the workload and it was just going to be too much. It was happening too fast. No, her response was, my husband basically is not handling this growth well. And if I do this, I will lose my marriage. That was her quote to me.
Wait, explain that.
Yeah,
he was. Say to her, I'm sorry to see your marriage go.
No, not at all. Because she was really upset about it. And
I want to make sure I'm clear. Her husband was resentful of her success. Is that what you're saying?
To an extent. What I'm saying is, and I had this conversation again a couple days ago with another business owner, some of the women are married to men who married them when they were the restaurant chef, not the restaurant owner. the nail tech versus the nail tech business owner, the lash, you know what I mean? So they're okay when you're going to work every day, putting on people's makeup, doing people's nails. But when you become the CEO or the leader or the owner and founder of something, there's a growth that these women have experienced. I know I've experienced it. And these instances, these husbands were not ready to stay married to that woman. This is the young lady I talked to earlier this week. She just opened a location. Her husband, his needs are tertiary, right? They have kids and it's the business. Now he's tertiary because she has this booming business that requires her to be there more. And she hasn't gotten to that point in her business where she has structured it to hand certain things off, which is fine because that's part of your growth. But when you're asking about women and the confidence thing, I think that can be an individually based thing based on your history and your baggage or whatever. Your growth in business can be lonely. And some women may choose to not be lonely and keep the people around them that are more comfortable with them being the nail tech versus the CEO.
Well, that's depressing.
I'm so sorry.
No, but I think that's very astute.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's, Doug and I, we started the business together. I mean, he still had a different job for a few years. So, but we've had this conversation many, many times. And it's so funny on the tertiary because Doug says that he's fifth. He comes after my iPhone. And so there's Huck first,
right,
then the iPhone, then the business, then the two dogs, and then comes Doug. In our lives together, knowing that we have another 50 years or whatever, or guessing that we have another 50 years, at this period in time, we have to focus on those things and dedicate our time to those things. And he said one of the smartest things that's really stuck with me in that our relationship between the two of us has never changed in 20 years. What has changed is the outside world and what we're working on. But the unit between us is still there. It's just that we're having to spend time on other things. And so I feel for us, like we're very, very lucky that we're able to have a conversation and say, okay, we're not having date night this year. It's just not, this is just not the year to do it. Like for us to build the life together that we want to build, this is what needs our attention. Yes. And are you good with that? We had to have this conversation with my son as well before this new acquisition. We're like, this is a family decision. It means I'm going to be gone 5 days a week for, months. Are we all good with that? And Huck said, yes, I want new Legos. So we've all got a vested interest and we all opted in.
Karen, I took your point before when you said, I'm clearly talking to three women who have confidence. And I also know that you are not someone who has shied away from trying to build your business ambitiously. But you also talk to a lot of other women business owners. Do you think women in general tend to shy away from that kind of ambitious growth?
We used to have a problem where women weren't starting businesses. So the Council for Women in Business produces a lot of data each year about research about women entrepreneurs. And now the research is showing that there are few women, there are more women starting businesses, but few of them are growing them. So what I've sort of changed my messaging in a lot of my outreach and when I'm speaking, talking, mentoring is to encourage women to grow their businesses. So I really try to highlight what I've done and how I did it and really encourage women. This is what it looks like. It's no harder than starting a business. In fact, I think it's easier. Starting the business is the hard part. Again, for me, I didn't really have a lot of women business owners that I talked to, honestly. I have a lot of friends who are leaders in companies or own businesses just throughout my years of being in business. But to me, I try not to differentiate man, woman, black, white, old, young. I don't care. I just get inspiration from wherever I need it. If there's somebody that's doing something that I think is inspiring, I don't care who or what it is. I try to find mentors in anybody, and they may or may not even know me, and most of the time they don't. it is really important, particularly for girls, to see their role models looking like them. And I'm not undervaluing that at all. And I think it's really important, and we need more of that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't have mentors who don't look like you. So I really have looked at other business owners who have grown their businesses and said, hey, why not me? I take a lot of inspiration from Russell Wilson, actually, the Seahawks quarterback. He's my hero. I'm like, yeah, why not me? Let's go.
Why is he your hero?
Because he has a whole foundation. The name of it is Why Not Me? And the idea is somebody's got to do it. Why not me? Why not? And so I think that about our company all the time. And look, somebody's got to be the world's greatest UX firm. Why not us? So, I just can't find a good reason why not.
That's a great answer. Do any of you ever get tired of being the boss, making decisions?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my
Oh my
God.
goodness.
I don't think that's a woman or man thing, is it? Or maybe it is.
I just had coffee this morning with a brand manager of a brand we carry, and he said, okay, well, where do you want to sit? And I'm like, David, can you please just be my boss for like an hour? Just an hour. Like, can you just tell me where to sit and you tell me what to eat? I would be so stoked.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
True.
I bet there is a male-female thing a little bit there.
Be an interesting research project.
I think, and to be fair, I love the fact that I have the choice to sometimes not want to be the boss. I mean, I think if we're really going to dig deep, do I ever not want to be the boss? Probably not. I just happen to have the privilege and the choice to be able to say, hey, David, boss me around. But do I want that to be my life?
You're allowed to be tired one day. You're allowed to feel like you've had enough.
Yeah.
But you were the boss to decide that you wanted to get bossed around. That's the important thing.
Yes. I think that's what I'm.
It was your decision.
Yes. It's the choice.
Yeah.
So probably no, I probably don't ever get being tired of being the boss. I probably really desperately love it.
I don't get tired enough to not do it, but there are days where, honey, what do you want for dinner? Not another choice. Like you decide. Where are we going? You decide. And they found that people who make a lot of decisions have like a uniform in their clothing because it's one less decision they have to make today. And
isn't that what Obama said?
Obama said it. Steve Jobs said it. Mark Zuckerberg said it. That there's, Dr. Dre. We wear the same thing because it's just one less decision I have to make today. And I think that's a version of just not wanting to be the boss. I think being the boss is making decisions.
One of the things I'll tell you is, in terms of being like within the company, I have often said that I think because I'm a woman leader that I get less leeway to be mad.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
If I'm having a rough day and I'm not my best self and I'm short or I get upset or mad about something or mad at somebody, I think the impact that has on others around me is far greater than if I were a man. And that is something that I really believe.
And I think it's because I think it might be because people want to give you permission to be upset. And if they haven't given you permission to be upset, it's jarring to them. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure about that because these are people who have known me for a while. But I'm a bitch if I freak out. I don't think you hear that about too many men leaders if they are rightly upset about something. And these are things that are legitimate. It's not like crazy business. This is, the numbers aren't right or somebody's screwed up and there's really a problem. I take that stuff seriously. And part of it is, for me, part of my persona is warm and caring. And I think people expect that more from a women leader. So that's why they like to have women in the room because they listen better. It's known that there can be more warm and more caring. And this is why you need diversity, right? So we need an equal balanced room. It's not all women and not all men. You need balance so that we get all kinds of types of personalities, moods, temperaments, these kind of things. But I think people expect that more from me because they see it. And then when they see the other side, they're like, oh, that's not what we expect.
I don't have permission to be upset, even as a leader. I don't have permission.
What do you mean by that?
I just, there's always these stereotypes that, with women, when she gets upset, it has nothing to do with about what just happened. It's all the baggage that she's bringing with her. It's probably a boyfriend argument or something. And so I have found that, and that's why I rarely do get upset, because I don't want to do the work of being validated. And I haven't gotten to a point where I don't care. Right? Because if I'm upset, it's because something's not happening that I need to happen. And I need you to care so it can get done. Right? So I have found that it's easier to get upset when I have the permission of people who know that I'm upset, when they agree that I should be upset. When they don't agree, it can be dismissed. And not so much with the people that work with me, there. And I don't really get upset like that. But when you're talking to a lender, or if you're talking to somebody in your administrative or contract work, when you're upset, I feel like I need their permission. And once they agree with me, then we make the changes that we do. But if they don't agree with me, if they think, even though I'm rightly upset, it just changes for me.
How do you deal with it? How does that feel?
Well, like I said, I don't get upset. And if I do, I deal with it on my own. I don't express it to them. And when I do express it, it comes in form of questions, again, trying to get you to see where this is a problem. And then they acknowledge it and they move on. There is no ownership of it outside of acknowledging it, where it's just different on my end. I've seen with women, when men are upset with women, they're not only supposed to acknowledge it, they're supposed to own it and make it better. And so I don't get upset outwardly. If I do get upset, not a lot makes me upset. I want you to say, like, there's a couple times where I'm like, you know what, I totally would have said this differently. I totally would have expressed myself differently if I felt I was in a space where me being upset was okay. And not okay because I was blowing up for no reason. It was obvious I should have been upset, but because we just don't want to deal with that, we don't want to look at that right now, we just.
Well, I think it's impressive that you can maintain your cool like that.
But I mean, honestly, Karen, look at me. I have no choice. I have to maintain my cool. I don't live can you imagine? I mean, the complex of the angry Black woman, and it's always illegitimized. It's never validated. People don't really want to hear you. So I have no choice but to find something to do with it so we can get something done.
I don't think anybody wants to have anybody walking around being angry all the time. So I think you're far more effective if you can keep your cool. So I think it's excellent that you're able to do that. And I wish that I could do it better.
All right. I want to move on to another topic. As I started last week, every week I want to ask you a question that Laura actually suggested, which is, what's the worst thing that happened in your business this week? Laura, let me start with you, since you suggested the question.
Yeah, thanks a lot. What's the worst thing that happened in our business this week? I would say that I am trying to figure out how to bring two teams together that work in different states that have a lot of overlapping responsibilities and skills. So that's kind of a nebulous answer, but team dynamics and trying to figure out who does what and try to introduce everybody and get everybody on the same page. So there's just a lot of friction as we figure this out. And I personally just think that it's just going to take time.
Was there a particular problem that you can share with us? Not pointing fingers, but giving us a sense of where this is becoming an issue?
Yeah, we have, a couple of different websites. And with one of the websites, we're asking that any updates to the site be run through the other team for second eyes for a variety of reasons. And some updates were made to the site without running it through anybody. And the updates were not updates that we would have, and I hate to use the word approve, but they're updates that we would have liked to have discussed before they went up. And so once we found out they were up, then we had a whole conversation about it. And then, of course, like feelings get hurt and blah, blah, blah.
I hope the answer to this question is never doing this podcast. Dana, how about you? What's the worst thing that happened to your business this week?
No, not at all. This is by far the slowest week of the year when you're looking year over year. So it's been a tough week, and we're counting down the hours to this impending snowstorm here in Michigan. That's going to start tonight and go through Sunday morning, which is always our busiest time, the weekend. So the hardest thing this week was watching those numbers. Man, ooh, it was tough.
What do you do during a slow week? Do you try to make use of it in some way?
We scale down our staff. We focus on training. We get a lot of admin stuff caught up on, but we're also just getting ready for when it gets busier and some of the changes we want to make and stuff. So it's productive, but it's not revenue generating directly.
Of course. Karen, how about you?
Well, Lauren, I'm sad for you, but I'm happy for me to report that nothing bad happened. It was a great week.
I don't believe it.
Nothing, not even one thing. I can't even make anything up.
Really?
It doesn't hurt that I'm actually not at work.
Let's remind our listeners, you're on sabbatical, out of the office through the end of the month, right?
I am in touch. This week, I actually worked more than I have the entire sabbatical because I'm getting ready to go back. So we're working on my re-entry plan. And I had a nice all-day meeting with my chief culture officer on Monday, sort of walking through my my plan of attack. And then I had a great all-day or half-a-day meeting with my COO yesterday, and same thing. And everything, there's nothing, they couldn't even tell me anything bad that's going on at the office. So I'm happy. I'm super excited. I go back a week after next, and I think I'm actually ready. I got to have a little week in Mexico first, though.
Hey, who invited her? Did you invite her, Lauren?
Good question.
Lauren,
Yeah.
Well, you do. You know a little bit of what happened to me last year, that I deserve it. Come on.
Yeah, I know, but you're still making me look bad.
All right. So for last question, I want to ask you about something that an item that we covered recently in the 21 Hats morning report that I found kind of intriguing. It's in Illinois. They just legalized recreational use of cannabis, and it seems to have thrown a lot of employers there. It's interesting. There seems to be some confusion in the sense that recreational cannabis is now legal, but it's also legal to fire an employee who is using cannabis during work hours. And there seems to be some confusion about that. I'm curious about all of you. Has the change in laws had any impact on your businesses? Have you ever done drug testing? Would you ever do drug testing? How do each of you look at this? Maybe, Laura, why don't you go first?
You know, it's funny that you say that, because I think my general manager just told me that in Nevada, that it is now illegal to fire an employee for having marijuana in their system. I would assume that it's not legal for people to smoke pot or use cannabis during work hours, in the same way that you're not supposed to drink alcohol or anything that's mind altering during work hours.
Right.
But I'll tell you one thing, from a recruiting standpoint, we got a lot of people who would love to move to Nevada and come work for us because it is legal. And when you're working with a bunch of creatives, I'm not sure that that's a bad thing. But from a productivity standpoint and from a warehouse standpoint and from the other employees, it doesn't affect us. I mean, if it makes people's lives better, on the weekend, and that's what they choose to do instead of drinking, then sounds great to me.
So I assume you don't do any drug testing of employees or potential employees?
No, we have great people though.
Dana, how about you?
No drug testing at Paralee Boyd. Michigan just legalized recreational marijuana. So, and even before then, I'm with Laura. What you do on your spare time is up to you. And if it's impairing your ability to work, that'll come out. And just by keeping up quality standards and whatever in the salon. So we've had a couple of employees who've come in smelling of marijuana and they've been sent home because in the beauty business, nobody wants to smell that while you're doing their hair. So, or we've asked them to go change and come back. But
You need to tell them about edibles, Dana.
right. And well, vaping is huge here. So, but the policy at Paralee Boyd is just no consumption at all. I don't want anybody to get hurt. We're using scissors sometimes, hot irons and such.
Karen?
In Washington, it's been legal for a long time. We've had no problems, and we only ever drug test when a client requires it. And it wouldn't be requiring it of a specific person per se, but it would be requiring that the team working on their project has to have been drug tested. And there's probably some mechanical reason of something that we're doing that would be dangerous. I guess I'm not sure why they would require it.
That's kind of hard to imagine. Would this be employees who'd be working on the client's premises? Or?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, and so it could just be that they have a strict policy, and that has to trickle down to us. So it's very rare, though.
Has that ever caused a problem for you?
No, no problems.
Lauren, can you ask this same question when William is on?
Sure.
I'd be really interested to hear his answer as a pastor recruiting guy from Texas.
That's a great thought. I will do that. As for today, we are out of time. My thanks to Karen Clark Cole. My thanks to Dana White. And my thanks to Laura Zander. Appreciate your taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Remember, we started the 21 Hats podcast to help business owners feel a little less isolated, to let them know they aren't the only ones fighting these battles. If you got something out of this conversation, please help us reach more people. Tell a friend, subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at 21_hats. And let me know if you have a question or a comment or a topic you'd like us to cover. My email address is lfeldman@21hats.com. See you next time.